Welcome to the Two Act Podcast, where we cover all things movies, anime, and TV. I'm gothjon. I'm also here, joined by Adi. Today, we are going to talk about my favorite anime series, Panty and Stocking with Garterbelt, made in 2010. Warning, this episode will probably be full of adult content. That's your warning. So I'm going to go into a little intro, and then I'll ask you what you thought about it. So, Panty Stocking, or PSG for short, is a show about two angel sisters that fell from heaven because of how unangel-like they are and how they act. And now they fight ghosts to buy their way back into heaven. Every time they kill a ghost, they get some heaven coins and try to help them buy their way back into heaven for, being the slutty sister or the gluttonous sister that loves sweets. Adi, what did you think of Panty and Stocking with Garterbelt?
Yo, this show is fucking insane. And I apologize to our listeners. This is going to sound like we're reviewing art house porn. but but this is fucking brain rot. It's
it's great.
It's insane. It's insane. This show is it's quite a thing for it to exist. And it's crude. It's packed rather with pop cultural references to the West. Kind of pays homage at times, kind of ridicules it. But yeah, it's really reminiscent of like the early 2000s Cartoon Network shows like Powerpuff Girls and Dexter's Lab. And at first it's like, oh, this is kind of like really nostalgic. Like it really got me thinking about the cartoons I used to watch when I was a kid. And then quickly I realized, no, this is not the type of cartoons I ever watched as a kid.
Yeah. Don't make the mistake I did. And I showed it to my sister, and she was like 15. And I was like, this is what I watched when I was 15. And then I realized, oh yeah, this show is like horny as hell.
Yeah.
Sorry, sis, by the way.
What were you thinking recommending
I'm
this?
just being an idiot. I don't know. So Panty and Stocking is one of like the 5 or 6 anime I physically own. Like I have like the DVDs.
Right.
Yeah, because why wouldn't I? I have the Panty and Stocking wall scroll. I have the figurines. I have the body pillow. I have it all. Like this is my show. Like I've watched this show a lot, not as quite as much as I have Fooly Cooly.
Mm-hmm.
I shared this glory to a lot of different friends, and all of them, I'm sure, giving me the side eye or thinking I'm like watching hentai. Which it's funny that you would call it, really pervy or really risque. When the shows nowadays, they basically are softcore porn. Something like Interspecies Reviewers rings a bell, or yeah.
Well, I suppose it's not really, for me, it's not really like, it's still really cartoonish.
Oh yeah.
With the depiction of sex or raunchiness or whatever you want to call it. But there's sort of a shock value to it, which feels really like, it's kind of like watching cartoons. Like, I know anime, we've seen mature animes in recent years and stuff, but it's kind of like you're watching a cartoon which your brain's kind of hardwired to see it as a cartoon you'd watch, which is kid friendly. But this thing
it's drawn in the style like Powerpuff Girls, like initially. It does change art styles occasionally. Like the show has a lot of crude sexual jokes and tons of references to other anime, movies, and TV shows. Like, in fact, like all the titles of all the episodes are all references to movies, shows, or anime.
It's doing its own thing. It's got its own spin on it. But I suppose, like, would you even say the show really even has a plot? Like, kind of just rolls with
it. What kind of doesn't until like the last like 2 episodes. Then you have a 2-parter, and you're like, what the hell? Where'd this come from? We're just killing ghosts or hanging out, making references to Sex in the City, and then the plot shows up in the last 2 episodes. You even got like a Chuck to the Future like thing where like that. That's the part of the episode where I wouldn't blame you if you're staring at your phone, just because you're like, "What is this?"
No,
Yeah,
actually, we'll talk about those episodes because for
sure.
me, I think I liked it selectively.
Yeah,
So I didn't like watch everything in one go.
yeah.
I
I
feel
don't
like
blame you.
it's kind of like the show you need to be in a certain mood to see, and
Mm.
it's not something you want to just binge, unless obviously you may have because you're a fan. But like,
Yeah, initially I watched it week to week when it came out, and I've watched it in Japanese, which some people prefer, just the way that the actresses and actors they act. And then my particular thing with the sub is the Demon Sisters. They roll their R's. They go rules. Like I love that. In the English they don't do that, which is like, but I love Monica Ryle's Stocking. Uh, Sorry, Panty, I don't remember your voice actress's name in English, but I also love you.
yeah, I think for me, like, when I watched it, because I watched the dub too, I didn't see the sub.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel like I was watching an anime at all. Maybe there are a few instances and few episodes that kind of uh remind you that you are watching a Japanese sort of anime, but it mainly felt like the folks at Gainax, which was the studio that made this, uh, really looked at the show as, okay, we'll take a dig at the West, and let's like fucking parody and make a show about these two sisters who are like anarchy sisters. That's what they're
Yep.
called.
That's their last
Uh,
name.
Literally,
Yeah.
they're lost.
Yeah.
And one of them's addicted to sex, and the
Yeah.
other one's addicted to sugar. And then you've
Yep.
got you've got like
Garterbelt, a priest.
a priest
Really into bondage.
who's kind of like a pimp.
In
He's
a
not a
way,
pimp.
yeah. And the guy
He's more
that
like
did his
a
voice acting,
yeah.
he did his best like Sam Jackson impression, which definitely shows. And it's funny because he's a white man that's doing a Sam Jackson impression. They're like they just
Yeah,
cast
that's 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 fucking crazy. I mean, I
yeah.
can totally see why that would be so problematic in
Right.
today's
Today,
age.
yeah, yeah. Somebody
It's
would
kind of like Tropic
flip a
Thunder,
tit.
right? If you
Yeah.
try to make Tropic Thunder today,
Can't
there's
do
there's
it.
no way that's gonna happen. But the fact that it exists is like, wow, like that's incredible. Free
Yep.
speech and whatnot.
You're
And
right.
and I think Garterbelt, the guy who voices him, I could tell this is kind of this is not a real this is not a
African
real
American man. Yeah. Yeah,
African
that's
American.
fine. Yeah. The
Um,
it you can tell that they had a lot of fun doing the dub. In fact, I know that Monica Ryle was ADR director.
I just want to say before you continue, this is by
Yeah.
far the most like foul mouthed dub show I've ever seen in an
Yep.
anime.
Well, yeah, Funimation gave them carte blanche. They were like, "All right, do what you got to do. Just make it make sense." Not as quite as ridiculous as Ghost Stories, that famous dub where they're making WWE references or anything crazy like that. If you like line up the subtitles, they do definitely have to match those mouth flaps for sure. Yeah. Panty and Stocking is a love letter to the Western animation lovers. PSG is in the same vein as adult animations where you're told not to watch growing up, like something like South Park or a few drops of like Powerpuff Girls in the art style, and then the two episodes in every episode. And then you even got like characters that are a reference, like Chuck. He's literally a reference to the character from Invader Zim, the little robot boy. Uh, he's green and he kind of looks like him. And then you got Briefer's Rock, which is like straight up Ghostbuster wannabe. Geek Boy shows up from
Mm,
time to time, and he's infatuated with Panty.
yeah, yeah. So there is a few recurring things that do happen,
Mm-hmm.
which is mainly the characters you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but like most of the vibe of the show is like it's kind of every episode is its own thing for most part. And it doesn't really even necessarily always tend to follow a plot. It just does its own thing.
Nope. There's a ghost that
Uh,
shows up and they got to kill it.
that's kind of what I think the general premise of the whole thing is that okay,
Mm.
uh, these sisters don't give a fuck about anything but
No.
what they desire and what they need. But end of the day, they're called to kill the ghost that
Mhm.
takes over the Dotton City, right? That's where they're
Yep.
living.
Dalton City. Yep.
Which is a reference to it's like a Japanese reference I heard.
Hmm.
But and then they have to kill it. They have to execute the ghost, and when they do, they always have a shot of the ghost as a sort of a claymation
Yeah,
model.
yeah. It's like an
Exploded?
homage to the Zentai, like the Power Rangers. That's what they used to use. They used claymation for those original like models back in the. I don't remember when the Sentai aired, but when it came to the West with by Saban, they used those claymation monsters, and then they sent them into live action, and they had like a robot fight them like a kaiju monster. And I think that's what that was. All those explosions, just random. And then the funny thing is, that's not even the only live action that's in this show.
No, no, no. There's a bunch of other stuff that does happen.
Hmm.
Um, but it's like for me, I gotta be honest. Like, there's some episodes that felt a bit too generic for me to get
Mm.
into. But then there's some episodes that really blew me away. No pun
Right.
intended. And it's like I'm like looking at the show and I'm thinking that it kind of reminded me. I suppose this came out before, but it's got that Rick and Morty like uh feel to it, that
Yeah,
potential
like
to it.
the episodic, not necessarily something that's like on an arc.
Yeah, not necessarily on an arc. It can still
Mm.
build to an arc, I guess, if it wants to, but it
Yeah,
chooses
just
not
like
to
Rick and
because
Morty. Those like
yeah,
first two seasons.
yeah, like the first few seasons of Rick and Morty
Hmm.
really I think is a prime example of what the show
Hmm.
can be. But I think what threw me off was the length. I felt like the episodes. So I didn't when you recommended it and you told me it's 12 episodes.
Or 12,
I was like
13. I couldn't remember.
12 or 13, yeah,
Yeah,
or 13 actually. But I
technically
thought it was like
13.
okay, because I was under the assumption that will be like 23 minutes.
Right.
But it's actually split. Each episode involves two episodes, or there's a
Yep.
A and a B
Yep.
side to
Just
this,
like
and they're
Powerpuff
all
Girls.
exactly, and they're split in 10 minutes,
Mhm.
um, which is admirable to an extent because it's like okay, well, you only got 10 minutes, so whatever you do in that 10 minutes has to kind of make an impact, right? There's no fat. You can. There's no room to just fill stuff for the sake of
Right.
it. But at the same time, there's like some episodes where there's so much happening
Yeah.
that there's nothing really happening.
Yeah, I can see that.
So it's like it took me some time to get acquainted to it because it's been a while since I last watched a show that was that short in its runtime. Like
Mm.
episode run like per episode.
Yeah, where they kind of feel like
So
shorts. Yeah, no, I definitely get
yeah,
that.
yeah, it kind of it gave me the vibe of something you'd watch off of YouTube, like some crazy vision that you'd know never would ever get made for
Right.
TV, which you'd only be able to see somewhere, online on a
Where they're
platform.
yelling, "Repent, motherfucker."
Yeah.
And then they're doing
So
their transformation sequence where they get the stripper poles out and they're pulling out their panties and turning into a gun.
I mean, it's fucking insane. The
Only in
design
Japan.
team, I these guys they were high for
Oh,
sure.
for sure, for sure.
This-
Especially,
And this is completely original, right? This is not
yeah,
based on a
no,
source material
not
or
based off a manga, not, nope, just whatever the writer thought.
and I'm curious to know because like this came out 2010, that's like 15 years.
Yep.
And the reception I hear was not positive in Japan at least.
Well, yeah, I think all the positivity. The reason why they announced the second season is probably mostly because Western audiences, they all acknowledge that this is like a wild ride show generally. Like I'm sure there's detractors that, shit on it. Like there is a detractor for every show. But
Yeah.
most of the people that I've seen reviews for, they're like, it's a good turn off your brain. It's a good popcorn show. It's like you said, it's definitely brain rot.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, it's brain rot of the highest caliber, but
Mhm.
that does not mean that
It's
I
bad.
think it's got no value or no potential or no effort in
It's
telling
got
you story.
one of the best soundtracks for like anime, like period. A lot of the music's made
Yeah.
by DJ Teddy Lloyd. There's one track I will skip though because it's literally panty moaning, and I don't want to make everybody else in the car feel awkward. Uh, and after he produced a lot of the music
I
on
mean,
this,
let's be honest, like
yeah,
what, 30, 40, 50% of this is actually porn.
yeah, like a good chunk of it. It's just Panty getting her rocks off.
Yeah. Uh,
Like they don't really like
and
show anything other than like motions, but still, it's
no, they don't, and that's what I meant is like it's not like um it's not explicit like graphic wise
right. It's
compared to
just
some of the other shows that we've seen
yeah,
in recent years, but it's still got like this shock value to it,
absolutely.
which I think can be it can sort of overwhelm the viewer if they're especially if they're not if they're going into this blind.
Mhm.
I admire and I'd love to see
Sorry, my
your
sister.
reaction.
Yeah, it's
Your poor sister.
it's funny
Oh
that you
my
say
god.
that because every episode that I think about it now, like after the fact, 10 years later, I feel like every episode is like exposing a fetish that like the writer had, like expansionism, definitely bondage, and even like something weird as
Ah.
nose picking. Like who gets off on that? Japanese are
No, but,
weird.
but that's the thing. There's like weird shit in it. Like
Yeah.
there's
And
even
there's even something for people that are really horny for Transformers. Dildo,
yeah.
transform,
I
trans
mean,
homo.
and there's references to like pedophilia and
Oh
like
yeah, it's all over the
some of
place.
it really made me feel like this is really gross.
Yeah.
I'm like I couldn't really vibe with like I I I can watch anything like humor wise. I can
Mhm.
absorb. Like I'm not picky about comedy like that. But
Right.
there were definitely moments in the show that were like, okay, this is just gross, and I just don't find it
It's
funny
a
at all.
scatter shot because everyone's got a kink, and it's in there at least once or
Yeah, yeah. Now
referenced.
that you mention it, it kind of makes sense that
Yeah.
a lot of the episodes are kind of explorations of kinks and fetishes.
Yeah, and then
Um,
or like they have their zombie episode, they have their beach episode, they have the literally the sperm going up the hill, like it's
so those two episodes you mentioned, like,
yeah.
so I said like there's some episodes that felt a bit too generic for me.
Yeah, the beach
When I
episode.
say yeah, and when I say that, it's like it's generic. It's still fun. Don't get
Right.
me wrong. I'm not saying that it was boring.
The
There's still
internet exploded for that episode, by the way. Like
I'm sure it did. I'm sure it did. I feel like there's some episodes where they really didn't. I felt like they really didn't care about fucking story
no.
or even like because it's like you can watch cartoons right for kids,
Mhm. Right. And you'll miss an
which are
episode.
no. It's like if you watch cartoons for kids or if you ever watch cartoons for kids, you'd know this because it's like even those shows don't really have a crazy plot because it's meant for kids, but it'll
Right.
still find a way to stitch a plot in the few minutes that it has.
Right.
Um,
Like Gravity Falls.
yeah, like Gravity Falls or any you can pick any Cartoon Network shows
Right.
or the classics. which I've always it's a good form of storytelling because it's like, when you have kids as an audience, they're some of the toughest to get their attention because if they get bored, they will not give a fuck. They will like do other shit. They will
Right.
fucking
We're going
straight
TikTok.
up say they're not gonna be like adults who are gonna be like, oh, we're gonna be polite and watch this because
I'm
it'll
gonna
be
give the
rude not to.
time of day.
But that's what I'm saying is like with this episode with this show is like there's some episodes where I felt like the creators really didn't give a fuck about the viewer, and they were like, yeah,
Right.
we're just gonna do our own thing.
Mhm.
And like the zombie episode, they just turn into zombies, but then what?
And
Like
then they
I
go to
want to
the
know.
dildo shop.
I'm like trying to figure out. I'm like, okay, so then what's gonna happen? Are they just gonna be zombies? Oh no, they just retcon the whole thing, and then the next episode's the next episode. And the same can be said about that beach episode, where like in the end, you're looking at monsters or whatever, fucking consuming the beach and
Mhm.
spawning everywhere and killing everyone, and you're like, okay, it just ends like that, and you're like, what? What am I expected to take away from this? It's
We
like
don't
what?
have canon.
So it's like that really confused me, and I was like, what are they trying to do? Is this show that's just trying to be abstract? Are there like,
Mm.
is there any intention behind telling a real story to the audience? But here's what really caught me off guard. So like some of the generic stuff, like I would say like the first few episodes uh were kind of not my vibe.
Mm.
Like I didn't really get into it. Like I got the whole theme of what they're doing with each episode, which is okay. They're selfish. There's a running gag. Once into sex, once into sugar. That's all
Yep.
they give a fuck about.
Chillers,
They're
cakes,
collecting.
and
They're
candies, and
collecting. Yeah, they're collecting coins to apparently go back, but it doesn't seem like they're in a rush. And
Mhm.
end of the day, there's always a ghost, and they always turn into their whatever superior angel selves and kill the
Yep.
ghost. Okay, that's a theme. That's a running theme, and that's about it, right? That's what most of these episodes do. But for me, there were like few episodes that really like blew my mind when, especially episodes that weren't necessarily from the point of view of the main two characters, which is
Yeah,
Patty and
like,
Tom.
the art
Um,
style changes a lot, like
yeah,
episode
so I
5,
want to
second half.
I want to point out I'll go this in chronological orders that makes
Sure.
sense. Like for the first episode, I'd say that I really looked at and I really laughed and it made me appreciate it was Pulp Fiction. Sorry,
Okay.
no, Pulp Addiction, which is a
Pulp
reference to Pulp
Addiction.
Fiction,
Yep.
which is about the vengeful sperm ghosts
Yep.
that cause a shortage of tissue paper. Because it starts off in like a different art style in a different setting, and you're wondering like, oh, what's going on here? Why are we looking at soldiers in this icky white liquid
Sperm
like?
ghosts.
And then you quickly realize everything involving the way it's animated, the way the design of the world it's showing, the characters, and even the dialogue, everything is linked to the whole idea of them being sperms, and it's
Yep.
all very sexual and it's very suggestive. And it
Yeah,
was so.
they're vengeful sperm ghosts that cause a shortage of tissue paper.
Yeah, yeah, and you're seeing the world within them, and that's obviously inside someone's body.
Yep.
And it was like there's like Saving Private Ryan reference.
Oh, yeah.
There's like they're like rallying the troops together to conquer the mountain, and
Yep. They gotta
and
defeat
and
General Scotty in order to live.
and the whole thing is like you don't really see the main protagonists in the episode a lot. They're just there in the end because they need to go and find out, because
Mhm.
Garterbelt's losing his mind with the shortage of tissues because he can't relieve himself. And and they get clues to a abandoned tissue paper factory, which basically is where all these ghosts are. And in the end, it's like it's crazy because it's like, okay, well, you see them do what they do, which is fine. That's nothing special. It's what they do every episode. But then you're seeing the point of view of these ghosts, and it cuts to like their world again, and they're like arriving at the mountain, and it's not really a mountain.
Yep.
And in the end, they're like trapped inside a condom, and it's
Mhm.
like one of the most fucking hysterical stuff I've ever seen in an anime. It's like I was laughing. I was
Oh yeah.
really
No, it's
unhinged. Um, but then okay, so that's like one example where it's
okay.
like
Episode
pervy funny.
3B. Yep.
Yeah, that's like where it's pervy funny.
Mhm.
And then another episode that I think, which was I was completely didn't expect that the show had in it was the one you mentioned, which is 5B, called Vomiting Point.
Yep.
And that's where the complete art style of the whole show shifts. It takes place in a different part of Dothan City. So it's no longer animated in that Cartoon Network style
Right.
of early 2090s. And it's like really Satoshi Kon, and it's showing you like a depressing uh, sort of midlife working man who's in an office, middle-aged
Yeah.
working man who's depressed and he's struggling. No one
And you
likes
start to
him.
see like his soul like turning into a ghost, and he just wants to get his daughter like a gift of meeting Panty and Stocking because that's she's like, yeah, they're badass. Repent,
Yeah, they.
motherfucker! And you hear like a little girl say that,
Yeah,
and you're like,
yeah,
then you
yeah.
realize, oh yeah, I'm watching Panty and Stocking still.
True, true. That literally was when it was like, oh yeah, I'm still watching this show, which is about, because I was like, up until then, I was like, wait, what is going on again? And then you're like,
You thought you were watching
you're
a completely different show.
yeah, you're drawn into the world that it creates within the show, and you're looking at it from a different character's point of view. And I was like, uh, this is quite ambitious. It's quite perplexing, and also in a way oddly realistic, because it's like I can see that as a real example. I can see like this man, like people like him existing who are miserable, working office jobs, who are middle aged, who are have to provide for their families, and they're struggling. They're clearly not in a better place mentally or physically. um and it's just like, of course, the show then resorts to its usual shtick and gimmick of like, oh, there's a monster and we need to kill this ghost. But I thought in moments what it captured was quite impactful, and I think that's what the potential for me the show has, is like it can be deep when it wants to be deep. It's not like it doesn't have it in its arsenal. Uh, but for the most part, it just chooses to be kind of, self-parroting and trolling, and it kind of takes the piss. And in the end, you see that it is sort of a wholesome ending, because he does end up getting an autograph
Yeah,
for his
he does,
daughter.
and he doesn't turn into a ghost, and you're like, oh my
So he gets
god.
forced. He gets forced into drinking a mountain of beers by his coworkers, and he vomits so much that he sort of spawns a ghost. He creates a weird monster that starts
Yep.
consuming the city, or the part of the city they're in. That's kind of what happens. But it's the art style is the change in art style really was impressive. It looked like that looks like an anime, and an anime from the early 80s and 90s.
All right.
And I thought the visual style, in that episode was quite bold, because the episode before that was quite gross too. It was about nose picking.
Yep.
Um, and there's one
Raiders of the
sequence.
Nasal Dark.
Yeah, yeah, and there's one sequence in that episode which is just really gross.
Yep.
Uh, I'm not even
Hey,
gonna
I'm
describe.
not gonna yuck their yum, okay?
I'm
We're
not
all
gonna
into weird shit.
I am not even gonna bother describing what
No.
what happens.
Nope. You just need the title, that's it.
Yeah. So So there's some episodes like that, and then there's an episode where I don't know if you prefer me going unpacking it like this
Oh no, you
episode to
can. That's
episode,
fine. That's fine.
but
Panty
there's
stocking can be deep from time to time.
it can be, it can be. I just want to point that out before it's not that I'm just being critical
Right.
completely. I do want to point out what's great about the show. I really liked the episode where Stalkin falls in love with
Yep.
that gross ghost.
Yep. A
uh,
ghost, the
uh,
Phantom of Dalton City.
is that
Stalking
what it's
falls in
called?
love with the yes. Stalking falls in love with the repulsive, ill-mannered ghost.
Yeah,
Episode
and
9B. Yeah, that's the same episode as the beach episode. So the beach episode lands in
was
that one.
was the part A, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. Part A, in Angels Wear Swimsuits.
Yeah, I've noticed a trend with the show where their second half of the episodes usually a lot stronger than the
Mhm.
first. But I really liked that episode
I
because it
did
was
too.
like again, it was kind of wholesome. It was kind of
Yeah.
like,
Stalkin falls in love.
love kind of has no boundaries,
Yeah.
and it's not all about looks. And
I
Panty,
have a whole diatribe about it.
yeah, exactly. And I want you to go on that because
Mhm.
obviously Panty can't fathom why she likes this guy who's
Right.
clearly gross. He's farting. He's disgusting. He's mean. But it's like I too can't figure it out. I'm like, what is the appeal here? But it's like she is stalking is not the type of character who cares about that. She's more
No.
into her.
Sweets
She's more
and boys with
sweet.
daddy issues.
Yeah, she's a glutton, and when you see her infatuated with this dude making her food and trying to meet up with her, and he's being mean, and then it's like she wants to leave and get with him, and that drives her to like drives the other sister to want to kill this guy until you realize that this was a ghost that never ever experienced love in his life
Actually,
and
incel.
actually whatever, yeah, until that moment. And then when he finally reveals that he wasn't a complete shitbag, that he did really have feelings for stalking because he tries to propose to her. I was like, okay,
Mhm.
I didn't see that coming.
Right.
It was like a bit of a twist in the end. And it was just it was nice again, and that's what I like about the show is like there's some episodes that are like not too much into the whole shtick of, oh, we need to kill this ghost and we need to save the world, save the
Mhm.
city, but it is kind of exploring a different point of view. And I think for me, it was episodes like that where the show kind of excelled for me. And I really like the song that plays in that episode.
Oh,
I don't know what
chocolate.
it's.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah,
Chocolate.
yeah, yeah. I thought
Oh
the
yeah,
song.
I know that song very well. Listened to it many
I,
times.
yeah, it was nice. Kind of fit the whole mood
Yeah.
of
Yeah,
the
they changed the
episode.
art style just for stocking and just like, oh, she's so dreamy.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So in the second half of episode 9, I fell in love. Stocking falls in love with the ghost. The whole fucking scene where he brings him chocolate straight from my dreams. This episode is why I say Stocking Anarchy is my waifu. If you're not familiar with what a husbando or waifu are in the anime fandom, it's simply it's my favorite character. Stocking's my favorite character in anime. She's goth, check. She likes sweets, check. She's a badass, check. She's willing to throw away her life for a ghost. He's gross and he's disgusting and he makes everybody throw up whenever he lets one rip. When he professes his love for Stocking, he gains redemption. This is the only way like a ghost for the most part has ever been like raptured and then they get to heaven. Even in this
Yeah.
goofy show, you get some character growth. You're just like, what the hell? Like these girls, they're completely selfish and just completely unlikable. But then you get something like this and you're just like, where the hell did that come from? That was amazing.
Yeah, yeah, no, and it's got like this unexpected quality to really hook you in just when you think like, okay, kind of figured out what the whole deal is with the show.
Mhm.
But it's also frustrating because it's like the show has potential to do stuff like that. I just wish it did more of it because it's like, there's some episodes that are not as memorable for me.
Mhm.
Uh and they're still fun, and I get why they're fun, obviously. Uh but I just think like there's still value you can get from an episode, from character growth, from storytelling, from like trying to plot just a bit further. Doesn't necessarily always have to be like, oh, every season's got to revolve around some big thing.
Mhm.
But it's like, it would be nice to see stuff like that happen. And then there's, I think like you mentioned, uh the episode that always makes you go want to skip it, but just chuck to the future.
Yeah,
So
Check to the Future. Yeah,
it's like a
I
three
think I told you
part.
it was 9 or 8. It was actually 10. The episode 10 has a lot of parts. It had, instead of having the two parts structured as one, two, three, four, five, six parts, and the sixth part is like the only like redeeming part of it. Other than like inner
Yeah,
briefs,
but
fine.
I do want to talk about it from 10A, which is Inner Brief, uh,
Mhm.
which I thought was again a really
Honey, I
funny
Shrunk the
episode.
Kids.
Yeah, it was a
And then
complete Honey I
they
Shrunk
just
the Kids.
jump inside his mouth because they're shitbirds.
Yeah, yeah, they do, and it's like he's so Brief. To describe Brief, because he's like he's a geek ginger boy
Yeah.
who
He's one of those
latches onto
guys.
them from the early
So
episodes.
there he has an archetype that is in a lot of hentai. It's always the main protagonist is a kid with scruffy hair with hair in his eyes because the animators are way too lazy to completely animate him because that's not the important part when it comes to hentai. That's he's kind of like that. He's complete incel kid. You find out he's actually rich, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, I
And
think
he's
the development he has is unexpected.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. No, it's
he
from left
starts
field. You're
from
like, what the fuck?
he just starts from like being a background character,
Yeah,
and
he's a joke. He's literally
he's a
half the
joke.
jokes. Him and Chuck
Yeah.
are the jokes. They're the relief character.
Oh yeah, Chuck is like brutally abused in the whole show. Like he's stepped on, he's mocked, he's humiliated, but he's still. It's kind of like Tom and Jerry.
Yeah,
They're there, they're doing this. It's their act. And Brief is like the only thing you do know about him is that he has feelings for one of the sisters,
yeah, for
and
Panty,
yeah, for Penny, and
which I
he's
don't understand at all. But that's just because I don't like Panty.
exactly like, I mean, he knows that she kind of sleeps with anything and everying,
Yeah,
and
anything with a
that's
pulse.
kind of gross, but it's like
Yeah,
he
no, you're
doesn't
gonna get an
care.
STD.
But I guess, that again goes back to that episode where, love has no boundaries. Like it's not
Hmm.
always about the things you think it is. Uh, but you see, they go into his body because he accidentally eats them,
Yep,
or somehow manages in. I can't remember.
yep. It's
And
like
then
Magic School Bus.
and he tries to shit them out.
Yep.
It
Yeah,
turns
Garter gives him a laxative, and he's like, "I gotta watch you poop," and he's just like, "Oh, it's fine."
and then he sends Chuck down there to go retrieve them in the fucking sewage. And that's just
Yeah.
so gross.
Yep.
But then but they're actually in his lungs, and then they're like wrecking havoc,
Jumping. Yep.
and he's got a few minutes until they're like life
Gonna
size.
expand. That's the expansion stuff. That's that weird fetish. He's got
Yeah.
like a belly, like he's pregnant, and Garter has to go in through his butt. It's just like
That's just
gross.
gross. That's
Yeah.
just gross. That's just Garter as well. Like the connotations of him. I'm sure we'll talk about him in a bit. Because I think he's the most uh complex character for me in the
Yeah,
show.
yeah. And you
Uh,
don't expect that.
you don't,
No, you're like he. I thought he was a
and
comic relief.
you do think that, but like, yeah, I think it was like weirdly weird pedophile vibes, really
Oh yeah.
gross, really creepy. I was like, so uncomfortable seeing that whole thing and
Hmm.
seeing Brief just being abused like that as a
As a
joke.
joke. Yeah.
Um, but
Kind of
it's
awkward.
like it is awkward, and that's where the show. That's what I mean by shock value. Is like the show is like shocking, and it can really overwhelm you when you least expect it, right? Because when you're really thinking, oh, this is still kind of animated, it's still kind of goofy,
Yep.
but it's like shit. It's just got dark out of nowhere. And the same goes for like some of the voice acting, right? Some of the slang, some of the abuses,
Yep.
and the words that they use to reference each other. I'm not gonna say it because I don't want to get fucking completely censored down. But it's like kind of it is a bit shocking because you don't normally
Right.
see that sort of stuff anymore. At least, you know.
Well, like Rick and Morty kind of did something like that, but that was the Mr. Jellybean. He was like a pedophile jellybean.
Oh yeah, I remember that episode. But you
Yeah.
know the thing with that, and I do vividly remember that Jelly Bean episode because it's so creepy in the way it showed it. Uh,
Yeah,
but it
they
wasn't.
really
It
fought
wasn't.
for it too to get that put in the show.
It's fucked up, and you see Morty being the victim, and in
Right.
similar way, Brief is Morty here because he's kind of
Yeah.
like victim, but at least it wasn't like graphic to what extent you see it in this show. Like
Right.
over here, there's no censoring. Like Rick and Morty, they can't even they bleep out their words
Oh
if you
no,
watch
they
it.
in the Japanese, and that's they bleep out curses.
Yeah. I'm talking about like if you were watching it on TV, like on Adult
Right.
Swim,
Got
it
it.
airs. But
Yeah,
I guess this
that's one
show
of the
never
reasons
really
why
aired on
it never did. No, no,
never
there was
aired on television.
they wanted there was talks about it, but it never happened because of
Right.
how risque it is. They would have to.
Yeah.
There's entire episodes they'd have to just never air.
True. But I guess, that episode was pretty shocking. But then after that, there's like 10B, C, and D, which is
Yep.
basically a
To the
trilogy,
future. Yep.
a trilogy, and it is some of the most bizarre, absurd stuff I've seen in the show because it's literally
Yep.
told from
Chuck's
Chuck's
point
point
of
of
view.
view,
He's
the
reminded
alien
about
doll.
his past and his fights against fasteners. The first part.
So Fastener is the opposite, the demon sisters, and
Yes. Yep. The Demon
they're
Sisters, Scanty and Knee Socks.
yeah, they're dog basically, right?
Yep.
And I don't even know if you can call him a dog.
Oh, it's whatever. It's his arch enemy.
Arch,
And
yeah,
then
it's got that
yeah.
sort of
And
vibe
then
where like arch nemesis, and you always match. It's kind of like Batman against
yeah.
Joker, and you
Mhm.
always got your arch nemesis popping up. But it's like these three episodes, they're so abstract, they're so bizarre. It's really hard to understand what's happening. But I really just thought of it as I didn't even bother to deeply understand it. I
All
just
right.
looked at it for what it was, as an interpretation of this character's mind. I just think it's cool that they did that they went through and they showed this because for the most part, like I said, he's kind of like disregarded. He's kind of a service dog.
And he
Uh,
gets deleted and immediately regenerates a lot.
yeah, he's abused, he's killed, he's butchered, but
Chopped
he's
into a
always
million pieces.
but that episode where there's like living things in his head and then they end up having sex, I was like, what the fuck am I watching? It's
Yeah.
like,
Realizes there's a demon living inside his head.
yeah. I still don't understand what that whole point of those three episodes were.
I don't either. I think it's just
But
being artsy fartsy for the sake of being artsy fartsy. But
yeah.
I'm happy the episode ends with the music video.
Yeah, I wanted to get to that because I think
Yeah.
that was the best part of
Yeah.
the
That episode for sure.
series. I didn't again
Yeah.
it's one of those things where the show can break convention and
Yeah.
form.
It's a billion music references. They're performing D City Rock, which is actually a pretty banger.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of watching those MTV videos.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It
Oh
was
yeah.
nice kind of.
Yep, they got album covers doing references to like Nirvana or the Sex Pistols or Marilyn Manson.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of references.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Gorillas.
every Gorillas. Yeah, I really like the Gorillas reference. I'm a big
Yeah,
fan of the Gorillas,
it's
and
cool.
I really liked how they had that. It's like blink and you miss it, really,
Mm-hmm.
which is great. And actually, even if you don't vibe with the show, like if you don't like the characters, and let's be honest, I mean, the main characters are not, you know, they might not be necessarily likable. Uh,
Yeah, they're
everyone. I mean, I
selfish.
get the appeal for you because
Yeah,
you
because she's
clearly really
goth and she's perfect in every way. You can't say anything bad about her.
Yeah, yeah. Until you can, right?
Yeah,
At the end.
it's
Uh,
fine because my best friend, his favorite character is Panty, and I don't get it. And then one of my other friends, their favorite character is Knee Socks. I don't get it. You just like the character. You like the character.
I do find it funny how like the demon sisters are often more considerate and well
Yeah,
behaved
they
than
follow the
the
rules.
yeah.
The
It's just like
rules.
weird. They're kind of like the same the two faces of the same coin, two
Yeah,
sides of the same coin.
yeah. They show
And
up in episode 6, and that episode, the animation budget goes nuts. The real spectacle.
episode episode 6, yeah.
Yep, it's
And that's
Le Diablo-esque. I don't even know how you pronounce that. It's French.
Yeah, I think that's one of the only episodes where it's like there's no split. It's like one whole
Yep,
thing,
it's one whole
uh,
thing.
which again makes me question. You know that they could, if they wanted to, they could
Yeah,
make the
maybe
show
they'll do
deeper.
that with the next season. Maybe.
Maybe, but I think like they show up. So what happens is like there's that one episode. I gotta bring this up.
Yeah.
Where there's like, Tom Cruise? I never saw
Yeah,
that coming.
yeah, 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 yeah. Tom
Uh,
Cruise,
and
they're
they're
like
like
in a they're
held
getting
held
accused of killing a bunch of ghosts,
yeah, yeah,
and
and
then a monkey is their lawyer.
I just wonder if Tom Cruise is aware that he exists in a
Probably
show like
not.
this.
Yeah, I'm sure he's
Probably
referencing
not.
everything. So a
I know,
reference
I
to
know.
South Park.
Yeah,
Sure, he does
I know,
no
but
idea.
I would love to get his reaction. I would love if they could have made him see this. I mean, it's not gonna happen, obviously, but it would be funny just to see
What do
how
you
he'd
say?
react and what he'd say. Uh, because it's not like Tom Cruise can't do comedy. He's actually he's really underrated when it comes to comedy. If you've seen Tropic Thunder, you know what I mean.
All right.
But yeah, I thought that episode was pretty fucking insane, especially the monkey really going crazy in the
And
end.
then the monkey becomes a reference to Phoenix Wright, like objection. He gets
Yeah,
struck by lightning and becomes really smart, and then he
he
defends them.
does. He does. Which because and he already has an IQ of what
58,
200.
and then he's the smartest lawyer.
Yeah, he was an ape.
Yep.
He was just he wasn't, an actual lawyer, but
All
he
right.
turns into one after he gets struck by
Mm-hmm.
uh, electricity or
Yep.
lightning. But you see that what happens is like these demon sisters, they're like kind of shape shifting. They're like playing because
Yeah,
obviously you realize
they dress up. Yeah.
it's not actually Tom Cruise's sister's disguise. And
And the guy
uh,
kind of looks like Rick from Rick and Morty.
he
He's got
does.
crazy eyes.
Yeah, he does. The judge or
Yeah.
yeah. And then yeah, and you start to see that they're becoming kind of increasingly relevant to what happens with the episodes as it
Hmm.
progresses. Um and then you kind of see the build up. But before we get there, I do want to talk about Garterbelt's character
Yep.
because he's
Once
kind of
upon a
like
time in Garterbelt.
yeah, that episode was
The
freaking
music is
nuts.
amazing. Yeah.
Uh, it was so again, it's a reference to Scarface, it's a reference to Once Upon a Time in America,
Hmm.
or Once Upon a Time in the West.
Yep.
I think it's
Every one
Once
of
Upon
these titles are a reference.
yeah. And you see they're trying to like there's increasing signs by then that he's kind of gay, and there's like homoerotic undertones, especially with
Mhm.
Brief, which I thought was really creepy and weird.
Yeah.
Especially that episode, one of the earlier episodes, he kind of like holds Brief by the shoulders, stops him from going with the sisters
Yep.
and who driving away, and he's like, "Oh, come, let's go to this spot. Heard there's a good buffet," and it's just so creepy. It's so
Mhm.
like, ugh. It just made me
Yeah, I
concerned
try to
sometimes.
overlook it. It's like the one thing that
It's
I
like
don't care
that,
for, but
and that's like stuff like that is just like, yeah. I don't know if I
well,
felt.
around that time, Family Guy was doing the molester, the guy who always whistles. So I'm sure that was just like in the um, it was like a joke he would make that was happening in Western media. You had like the pedophile that everyone tries to stay away from,
That's just,
or PDF file, as I like to say.
it's kind of problematic.
Yeah.
But a lot of it can be said is what the show depicts is problematic, and
Mm.
it's not something you can show everyone or
All right.
recommend. And I can see why it's hard for you, because it's like this is like your favorite thing,
Yeah.
um, but it's kind of like you can't
You
leave
have to
the
read your audience. You have to acknowledge I'm not going to show this as somebody's first anime because they're going
no,
to think
no, no,
all I
no,
watch
no.
is hentai.
Yeah, yeah,
That's why I go to the classics of fun, the Adult Swim, the Cowboy Bebop, the Samurai Champloo, the Fulikuli. I go with
yeah, yeah. No, I get that.
something more mainstream, something more easier to get into. I'm like, watch My Hero Academia, watch Demon Slayer, watch Dragon Ball Z.
It is kind of like comes down to your taste as well,
Yeah.
because end of the day, now you're spoiled for options. There's
Oh
so
yeah.
many different types of shows you can watch. Um and I think like this one is quite bold for what it does. Uh but it's also like I feel like there's a bit of disregard, and maybe that's just an opinion for watching it today, which is like 15 years
Right.
since the show came out. I think viewers change all the time, or the
There's going to
viewers.
be kids, somebody that's in their early adolescence, somebody's 16, 17, 18, and they just watch this show. They're like, oh my God, that was crazy.
Yeah, yeah, they're gonna be stunned, and
Yeah, no, they're going to be confused why other anime isn't like this.
oh yeah, big time, big time. And I gotta be honest, like I never heard of this anime before you mentioned it to
Yep.
me. So it was like,
Not a lot of
and
people
I
have.
probably I think people probably exactly they would not
Yeah,
even.
I know
Well,
Gen Z anime fans that have never heard of the show.
yeah, I'm not surprised
Yeah.
that it is the case.
Yeah, it's not
Um,
Evangelion.
no, 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 it's not Evangelion. Um, but I guess we can talk about like the last few episodes. So, like we
Yep.
said, a consistent
Panty
running
plus
theme.
brief, bitch girls 2, bitch.
These titles,
Yeah,
uh,
they're all references.
yeah, they're all. Is that meant to be a Mean Girls reference or a Bad Boys?
Oh, Bad Boys. Bitch
Bad
Girls is
Boys.
Bad Boys. And then Bad Boys 2, I don't know what their colon is, but that's definitely Bad Boys 2. Bad Boys for Life?
Sometimes the show kind of reminded me of like 21 Jump Street.
Okay.
Or like,
Yeah, Panty plus Brief is Romeo and Juliet. That's that live
yeah.
action. Especially with the particular scene where they're looking through the that glass fish bowl thing where they see each other. That's a reference to Romeo and Juliet. Romeo plus
Oh, okay.
Juliet. The live action I take my broadsword and he pulls out a shotgun. Like they
Right.
adapted the play and made it real life, like modern day.
Okay. So I mean, and look, I think another thing about the show is like even if you don't, even if you don't watch it for the plot, which I would
for the
argue
plot.
there isn't any.
It's
There- There's still stuff. There's still references, endless references, which you can spot. There's some that I missed, and I had to go look up the trivia
oh
of each.
yeah, no, there's a tropes.com article that says everything in there.
I'm sure there is, and
Yeah,
look, there is effort that goes in for doing that because it's like, okay, it's like one thing where you can put in a little cute reference here and there, but that is kind of like the theme of the show is that it's trying obsessively to reference pop culture or the Western pop culture, and you're seeing that in the way it does, which is often crude. Sometimes it's done in good spirit, sometimes it's just parody, mocking. It's doing his own thing. Um, but there is references you can pick up, even if you don't, vibe with the characters or the story. So at least it had that going for it visually
yep,
until the last two episodes, and this is where the story really kind of takes, I would say, where the writers try to put an effort to wrap things up and
yeah.
build
They
to the
try to give
story.
it canon at the very last second.
Well, what's your opinion on that? Do you think the show should have done that, or should it just?
Sure, I think it's fine. I like those episodes for what they are. Panty and Brief, I definitely like that one going into Bitch Girls 1 and 2, where Panty and Brief, Panty is trying to be a hoe and get 1,000 lays before she's sent back to heaven. And on her 999th lay, right after that, she gets re-virginized. She loses her powers, and um, Stocking goes back to heaven, gets sent back to save her ass in the final moments
Yeah,
because Panty was more concerned about having sex than slaying ghosts. I think like that's like where her like character goes.
I
And
think both of them though, none of them were ever concerned about slaying ghosts.
no, not at all. But Stocking was actually slaying ghosts. And then the whole Hell's Monkey thing with Brief, where his dick is like a key to open the gates of hell or whatever. Just
What
like,
the?
and you got Corset,
Do you hear how
which is
ridiculous this sounds when you say it?
oh no, it sounds insane.
That's how it is,
So
though. That's
normal anime sound kind of insane when you talk to somebody that doesn't watch anime. Like, let's say, for instance, we'll refer to something that you're familiar with, like Dandadan. If you describe any of the episodes of Dandadan when they're fighting ghosts, people would think you're crazy. They're like, is this like a
good.
movie or? Yeah, anime is weird, and this particular anime is like times 10 weird.
Anime Dan the Dan is weird, and that's
Yeah,
a good. It's a good reference,
yeah.
but it's like this is like weird, weird.
Well,
This
yeah,
is
yeah.
like,
No, this makes Dandadan look normal.
oh
like
yeah,
like makes it look vanilla, I guess is the best word for it.
big time, big time, for sure.
Yeah, but Dandadan aired on TV.
That is true. It did air. It did air on TV.
I'm
So
sure if I don't know if it ever got aired in
I
America, but if
wanna
it did,
what the point that I'm trying to make is like this show can be friendly and it can be like
yeah,
appealing to but it obviously chooses not to
no,
for a reason.
right.
Which appeals to a certain audience, which I get. But it
That's
does, it can if it wanted to.
that's why I say it's a love letter to the West. It's a love letter to all the people that grew up with South Park. Like they even have a section, just like Philly Cooley, where they animate it in South Park style in the beach
Yeah, I
episode.
saw that the beach episode. Yeah,
Yep,
the volleyball fight.
yep.
Uh, yeah, I did pick up that
Where
reference.
Brief can't even keep attention to who's scoring because they're going so fast.
Yeah, yeah, and I suppose like those references are good.
Mhm.
Obviously, diehard fans of pop culture will pick up on
Well,
stuff
they're
like
like
that.
they kind of get rewarded for being a big
Yeah,
consumer.
they do. And it's like the show is like there's moments where like okay, like the whole brief and panty thing, like
Mhm.
she's always been cold on him until she
Yep,
realizes, oh, he's actually
he's actually a stud.
yeah, he's good looking and he's
Yep.
rich.
Mhm.
He's not just a geek boy. and she wants to get with him, and that's how she gets her
You want
powers
to be
back
my
the next day.
1000th?
But then after that, there's still that same disregard of like, oh, I don't give a fuck about you, whatever. Like
Right.
that's just her character, I guess.
Mhm.
Because
Like,
I don't think,
just when you think she finally gets, like, some character growth,
yeah,
nah.
no, no,
I'm
no,
just a
there's
bitch
no,
named Panty.
yeah, and that's what happens with I think in the end it's like, yeah, they do save the city
Mhm.
despite Garterbelt dying.
Oh, they do, and then he's like, "Oh my god," and then he
But I
blows up just like
do
the claymation.
Yeah, that was funny. But I do wanna point out something I didn't like, and I didn't
Mhm.
like I think one of the episodes was a recap, which
Yeah, yeah.
I did not like that
I don't
episode
blame you.
at all.
Yep.
I thought it was unnecessary, and more than anything, I thought, like, it was kind of
Yeah, that
cheap
was,
to
the
retcon.
first
It
part
was
of 12A.
Yeah, and it was kinda cheap to just retcon the whole thing, up until that point, because it's like, okay, before that, you're expecting, yeah, ghosts are like, showing up on their own accord, but then the show decides to retcon the whole thing and be like, "Oh, no, these were actually,
They're
and
placed.
they were placed by the demon sisters who were instructed to do so." And I'm
Mhm.
like, "Okay, kind of unnecessary, like, I don't wanna know, I don't see the point of doing that." Like,
Right.
it feels like a cheap attempt to build onto a story, or, you
Mm.
know it's like the show for the longest point is so, "I couldn't give a shit, I'm doing my own thing."
Yeah,
And then
they're
suddenly towards the end,
bottle episodes.
yeah, and suddenly towards the end, you're like, "Oh, these guys wanna actually build a ending and, get to a sort of satisfying conclusion," which I
Mhm.
think, for the most part, it concludes well. Yeah, I just thought that episode was unnecessary, and I was more weirded out by what happens in that. Were the demon sisters
Oh,
hooking
yeah.
up? What the
No,
fuck was that about? Was that actual incest?
I guess so, I don't know. They don't show it.
Because they call they
You just
call
listen to the audio.
like, I was so confused, by what
Yeah.
was happening.
I
I
think it was
was like,
just being shocking to be shocking, I'm sure.
and that's what I don't like about the show, is like when it's trying to be shocking for the sake of being shocking.
Yeah.
It that just feels cheap to me. Uh, and I think, because it's not like I don't find it funny, or I don't find it even like shocking. It just comes off as like unnecessary.
Mm.
Uh, it's kind of like an attempt to, like, oh, let's just throw this wrench in there and just see, you know, what effect it'll have. And I'm like, there's no need to do stuff like that at some points in the show. But I was just like, some of my general observations is, it's not like a whole show is like that. I mean,
Right,
for the most part, the comedy is good, and it's not for everyone.
right.
But
Comedy is subjective.
yeah, it is deeply subjective. But yeah, what do you think of the ending, the 13A and 13B?
Yep.
Up until then, I was like, that's fine. Like, and I think it ended in a pretty satisfying way until the post credits scene, and I was like, get the fuck out of here with this shit. Like, this is
Yeah, so the epilogue, if, you don't pay attention, if you were, like, watching this casually, usually you skip intros, skip outros, you'd skip the outro, but I reminded, Adi, "Hey, there's an epilogue," and she's like, "What?" So in true Gynax fashion, PSG ends in a true subversion that makes not only 0 sense, it completely blindsides the audience. I'm less upset about this because there's actually announced a season 2. It's been 10
yeah, but
years.
like 15 years, 10
Yeah,
years,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. Or yeah,
10
15 years. No, you're right, you're
15
right.
years,
It's
15
15.
years.
Yeah, 2010. I
That's a
really need the
long
second
time
season.
that's a long time to wait,
That's
and
fine,
that's a
that's fine.
long time for you to be under that impression. Like, imagine the reactions of
Oh,
like,
no,
"Oh,
the reactions then are still the reactions you get today. They are, what the fuck was that? By the way, I'm a
Yeah,
demon. I cut my sister up in 666 pieces.
and look,
Yeah,
let's just be upfront about it. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the show retcons this again,
it
and it's like
sure.
this is a consistent thing the show's done. And it could
And it
just be a
ends
big
in next continue in next season.
yeah, I'm sure. And look, it could just be either it could just be a big haha fuck you, just when you thought like we're gonna give you an ending.
It's a good question because it's the
Or
same writer and director as the first season.
right, which will be interesting for I'm sure to see,
I'm gonna love it.
especially for fans like you, because you'd be curious to know what the fuck happened.
Mhm.
You're in this
Yeah.
limbo for like
See,
15
the
years.
thing about it is there are a lot of animes that end with no resolution, where it's the rights are being owned by a copyright troll or a studio that went bankrupt, like Studio Gainax, or
Mm.
the studio that originally did Fooly Cooly until they were like,
No,
LOL, here have more
completely
seasons.
I completely agree about that, and that's really true because there are
Hmm.
some animes that really don't have uh the rights to say to end the story the way they want to.
Right.
But I don't think that was the case here, because
No.
if you look at the ending, it's actually
No,
a
it's a
really good
Gainax
ending.
troll ending. Studio
Look,
Gainax is known for these. They did it with
yeah,
Evangelion. They ran
no,
out of
no, no.
money.
I'm sure they did, and I'm sure the studio has a reputation. But I'm just saying,
Yep.
like, there's no need for it because it's like you ended it. I would argue that there's even no need for season two. I mean, it's great that there is. It's great that there is. I'm
Yeah.
sure fans. I'm sure people who
Oh,
waited all this
we'll buy
while
so
will look.
much stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm happy for the people who are fans of the show, and they're looking forward to season two, that they're gonna get a season two, because who would have to wait 15 years, right, for a season two? But I'm just saying, like, if there was no season two, it had the perfect ending, it had everything lined up
Mhm.
satisfyingly. But the whole cheap plot twist in the end is such a cheap slap to the face.
Yep. You just got M. Night Shyamalan.
It's like, get the fuck out of here. This is like, oh, and he woke up and he realized it was a dream type of
Yep.
ending. Like,
Right.
that's that's so unnecessary. It's so like it completely
Yeah.
spoiled the experience for me. I would argue, like, yeah, if you're recommending the show to someone new, tell them not to watch the post credit scene, because
Yeah. Yeah. I just
unless
I just wanted to trigger you. That's really what it
unless
was all about.
yeah, no, I'm sure, and I'm not the only one.
No, everyone
Like
when this came out
everyone,
in
because
2010, people were pissed. It came out that summer. People were so angry. They were
they were,
so
and
angry.
they have every right to be, because it's kind of, again, not to say that the show is consistent or faithful to its viewers, because it's constantly
Yeah.
taking the piss. It's
In fact,
constantly
there was even a fan made manga that was to continue the story. It
right.
was
Yeah,
like
I'm
a
not surprised.
DeviantArt
I
thing.
think
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It
I think
was really
feels
popular too.
it feels really tacked on. It feels like
Yeah.
a gimmick. It feels like something like, oh, let's just do this just to trigger people so that they'll be talking about this and they'll be hype. And I'm sure, maybe that was the intent, and that it was successful in continuing the fact that Studio Trigger is going to pick it up, and has a season two. So maybe that was again, we don't know what the intention was, but I'm just saying, like, from like, this is not something you do on a storytelling level. It feels really cheap, um, and this must hurt more for you that you had to wait 15 years.
Yep.
I think
Uh-huh.
I think it's pretty crazy.
I'm
I just hope you didn't wait 15 years just to be ridiculed even
disappointed.
further.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
'Cause that
I'm
would
gonna be
be
really upset if that season isn't anything like this. They introduced two new characters. They're two artificial
right.
angels, apparently. So we'll see how that goes. Allegedly, it's supposed to premiere July 2025. So I'll cross my fingers.
All right. Or maybe they're just trolling you, and they'll be like, "Oh, there is."
Right, it's one
It's like
episode and they're done, and it's like just the
yeah,
ultimate troll. He's
ultimate troll, ultimate
so
troll.
pissed
Uh,
off.
but yeah, should we? Do you have anything
Wreck.
else to add, or do you want to?
Nope, I got all my things I gotta say.
Cool.
Do you want to do the rating?
Sure. You want me to go ahead?
I want you to go first so I can love it.
Yeah, no. I know regardless of what I say or anyone says, this is like your 10 out of 10
It's my 10 out of
anime.
10. You got it.
I think it was I really enjoyed the show uh selectively. Like I mentioned, there's parts that are really good, and then there's parts that are really generic and can feel that there's shock value just for the sake of shock value. What I liked about the show is like the references to pop culture, the soundtrack, the art style changes, some of the crude humor really that I vibed with, I got. Um, and there's some unexpected moments of the characterization actually shows growth and signs. But then there's obviously stuff like the ending with that post credit scene, which kind of pisses me off. And there's some problematic themes explored, which I think I don't know, especially in today's age, how it'll be received, and whether I'm curious to know whether they'll continue, and they'll still be as bold. But I think it's truly a riveting mess. It's unlike an anime that you'll see. And I quite agree with the rating that it has on IMDb and Mal, which is the general consensus, which is 7. I'll give it a 7 out of 10.
Mm.
Enjoyable in parts for me
Mm.
more than anything. And I liked when it gets abstract and it explores different points of views. There's loads of potential the show has. And I hope that, the next season it plays around a bit more with its length and really
Mm.
explores that more.
Not as scathing as I thought it would be. No, no. So we already knew I was going to give this a 10 out of 10 the second I said it's my favorite anime. Why would I give it anything else? I know the things that suck about the show. I completely overlooked them. The show came out like right after I graduated high school, a couple years later. It was just like, this is the show that I want to, I just want to put on and just vibe. This is a horny show. That's fine. We're creatures of habit. PSG is what I want in a show where the plot is non-existent. The jokes are awesome. Comedy is subjective, and this one's right up my alley.
Cool. Cool, man. We'll see. We'll see what the next season, if it even comes out.
Yeah, July 2025. Fingers crossed. This is where I'd put in a call to action. Rate us on Spotify and YouTube and whatnot. But I'm gonna go eat my fill of sweets and become the size of a Goodyear blimp and maybe attempt to hunt some ghosts. See you, Space Cowboy.
That's goodbye for me. See you.